The problem with current AI tools and the next big thing and everything Greg Eisenberg talks about, it's not yours. It's all going to change, disappear, or change its price or something. You don't really own the service that you're renting from someone else. The key to moving forward in this whole AI race is having a foundation of skills and software that you use that you know isn't going away. So in this video, I want to introduce you to and help you build your first automation with n8n. n8n is open source, which means you can self-host it on your own server or your computer. Instead of paying for their service, you can run your own either for free on your own computer or for as low as $5 a month on Hostinger and start building from thousands of pre-made automation templates that are out there for you to use for free. So why should you care about learning automation skills? Well, they're essential for the future. Everything is being driven by AI these days, and stringing AI processes together is essentially how everything's going to get done in the future. They also enable you to work on more complex tasks because you can automate the busy work. You don't even have to hire someone anymore to do it. This allows us to be more creative and solve higher level problems, which I believe is a lot more rewarding as entrepreneurs and as human beings. And I'll tell you what, if all that's not enough for you, if nothing else, this will help you keep your job and make your career more resilient as AI comes and takes more and more jobs away. The coolest part is all these automations, you can get started with templates. Search what's in your stack. If you use Notion, find n8n templates that work with Notion. Then once you learn how to manipulate the workflows within n8n, you can do anything you want. According to some of these studies here, people are already saving 2 to 4 to even 10 hours per week using AI automations, with it becoming more common to save as much as 12 hours per week within the next 5 years. So the writing is on the wall. Learn this stuff. So first, let's briefly run through starting your own n8n instance. Hostinger is the fastest and simplest way to do this, okay? For as low as $4.99 a month or $6.99 a month will get you a much better plan. And honestly, this is all I've used for forever. And I run a lot of automations. I have a lot of fun with it. You probably don't even need to upgrade to $10 a month until you have like a lot of users. So honestly, these two plans will do just fine. So you can get started there. And what you're doing here on Hostinger is you're not paying for n8n. They are self-hosting n8n for you. That's the distinguishing here. Like, well, why am I paying for it if it's free? Because they're giving you a server with 2 virtual CPU cores, 8 gigs of RAM, 100 gigabytes of space, and 8 terabytes of bandwidth, okay? Someone's got to pay for that somewhere. These things are not free, okay? And when they are free, you're the product. So that's the simplest way to do it. Okay, so Hostinger is one way to run a remote instance of n8n so you can connect to it with other services and do all kinds of fun workflows. But self-hosted also means run it on your computer. And if you're running it on your computer, you can't have things be triggered while your computer's not on, for example, but you can still connect it to the internet and have it do lots of fun stuff, especially if you're using it with a local LLM like with Ollama. Because if you think about it, if we're using AI to make our lives easier, we don't always need to be on the internet. If we have a MacBook Pro M1, 2, or 3, we can download really good models, use Ollama, edit it in locally, and we don't even have to be on the internet for all this stuff. This is what I'm saying about having control over your infrastructure. So let's click on the hosting documentation here. The first thing we're going to need is Docker. So you go to docker.com. Docker.com, you can download Docker for your platform of choice. And then what you're going to get is a little app that looks like this. And you're going to see all the containers you're running. Docker helps you just run containers of software. If they have complex environments, you just containerize it with Docker so it doesn't have to touch the rest of your computer. It just exists within a container. That's a really simple way of explaining it. So everything going on in Docker is right here. As you can see, I have one little thing here. I normally have Open Web UI in here to run LLMs locally, but I actually recently reset all my Docker things. So this is what Docker is going to look like, okay? Let's get back to the installation instructions. So the first thing we need to do is open up a terminal. If you're scared of the terminal, take the command line bootcamp right now. There's a link below. It's free. It'll get you started. It doesn't need to be intimidating. You don't need to become an expert, but it is important. You do need to know how to use the command line if you want to take control of your AI infrastructure. So we're going to create a Docker volume called n8n data. Easy. Now I'll copy this second line, paste that in. It was unable to find the image locally, so it's pulling it from the registry. So we're going to let all of that download. And soon, in just a minute here, we're going to see n8n show up in our containers. Okay, so we got everything downloaded. Everything was installed. It looks like it's fine. Got some migration going on. And you'll notice here that now in our Docker app, we have an n8n container running, and it shows us what image is being run in that container and what port it can be found at. Pretty groovy. And now editor is now accessible via localhost 5678. You'll also see that same message here. Once running, you can access n8n by opening localhost 5678. So let's just go to localhost 5678. Wow, here we are. We're on my local computer. Look at that. So now real quick, what happens after you restart your computer? You'll notice that Docker might not show your container anymore. And that is largely because of this RM flag that n8n gives us. Because basically, that just means it's going to remove the container after it's done with it. Now, you're not going to lose any data because we have it in the n8n data volume. That's not going anywhere, nor are you going to use the actual image of the software. But the container itself isn't going to stick around unless we tell it to. So if we take that same command and we paste that in here, we're going to want to replace the RM flag with restart unless stopped. And now it will create our n8n Docker container again, and we'll see the container here and here, and we can sign back into our n8n instance. Now if I close Docker and I open it again, we'll see we have our container still there, unless I press stop or I ... and I want to remove it or restart it or, delete it completely. Localhost. There we are. So now make your account and sign in. Now, as you'll get started, you'll see that you can get a free activation key for these advanced features. And all you got to do for that is just enter in your email. So if you're comfortable giving them your email, then you're going to be able to unlock all the more advanced functionality here in your self-hosted n8n. Once you get that activation key in your email, click this usage and plan page and paste it in there. Boom. So now I am a registered community edition. And obviously you have lots of fun stuff here. You'll notice that some things are not available unless you pay for enterprise. This is just the nature of self-hosted software. And that's okay, because we are going to still be able to do so much here in our self-hosted n8n plan. So whether you're using Hostinger or self-hosting it, here we go. Let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is create a workflow. So the easiest way to start using n8n or learning n8n is to import a template into your workflow. We could, of course, add a trigger and then, start adding nodes and do all that. But when you're just a beginner at all this stuff, it's very hard. Even today, I don't even really do that. And I'll share with you my secrets to building n8n workflows with AI towards the end of this video. But what you're going to want to do is import a template. With this ... button, we're going to click import from file or import from URL. Import from file is the simplest and most universal, so I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, how do we find templates? Now, there are n8n workflows all around the internet. The best place to start, I recommend, is going to n8n.io, click under the product and go to templates. And here, there's thousands of templates, 404,011 to be exact, that can do so many different things. So I mentioned earlier chatting with local LLMs with Olama and doing processes on my computer. I clicked that one open. You can see this one is a free template. Some of them do cost money. And here, this is a sample of what it looks like. So if I zoom in and I scroll in there, I can see the creator left a note of what this does. So how it works and what to do. Now, not every template is going to have a note like that, but many of them do. And this is really simple. Chat message, LLM chain, Olama chat model. Done. That's all it is. And so we're going to get into how these all work in just a minute. But I just want to show you this is how the templates work. So you'll find n8n templates all over the internet. I might even have some in a link below if you want to check those out. But essentially, find something that you like, right? I mean, in something that you use a lot. Like, I connect all my agents basically to Telegram because that's just the simplest interface for me to use Telegram. Here you see conversational Telegram bot. So you can make a conversational Telegram bot that connects to GPT-4.0 to chat. and you can even send voice messages here. So Telegram, typing action to tell you that it's typing. Text or voice. If it's voice, it's going to go down this way. Get the voice file, transcribe it with Whisper, send the transcription to the agent. Now, if it was text, it would just go straight to the send context to the AI agent. Here's our AI agent. You can see you can connect a chat model to it, memory, which could be a database. It could just be a simple memory like this, or tools like MCP servers or things like that, which we'll go into as well. So this is OpenAI. Once again, it'll then analyze everything here, and then it'll spit out a response to Telegram. So here, you're able to see what these all look like. You're able to read a little bit. You're also able to see the creators, which is cool. It's like a little community that they're building on here. Who knows? Maybe you'll become a creator one day. So what you do now is you click the Use for Free button. And in most cases, even if you get these off of GitHub, you're going to get the JSON code. You could simply click this button, and right now this button is connected to my online instance, but if it's your first time using it, you'll see a different option there to connect it perhaps to your local instance. So this is one way you might acquire your JSON data. Another is like maybe on a school or some other site. In fact, we're going to run through a whole tutorial here, and you're going to need to get this same JSON file from the link below. It's free. Don't worry. Just check the link below. And you're going to copy it. Okay. So however you get your JSON data, doesn't matter, but you want to copy it. So once you have that data copied in some way, then you're going to paste it into a text editor, and then you're just going to save it as a .json file. myworkflow.json, n8n AI summary agent workflow.json. Do not forget the .json file. And if for some reason you are able to just download the full JSON file, that's fine. You don't need to worry about copying and pasting it into a text file. You just want to make sure you have a .json file. So then you've got your JSON file. You're going to click this ... up here, and you're going to click import from file. Guess which file you're going to import? The JSON file that you just saved. And once you import, you will see all these nodes now suddenly on your screen. Now, this is what we're building today. So before we dive in, let me show you what it does. This is what we're building. Don't worry if it looks complicated. We're going to walk through it step by step in this video, and I'm going to give you the template so you can download it and try it yourself. But first, let's see what it does. Let's go to a YouTube video, and I have this plugin that summarizes and transcribes videos on YouTube. So I'm just going to highlight that stuff, and then notice how I have in my bookmarks bar, it says save it. And as you can see in the tooltip that pops up, it's a JavaScript function. So as soon as I push this, it is going to trigger a webhook. In fact, let me show you on two windows here. As soon as I click that save it button, it is going to trigger a webhook that then executes this workflow. And let's do it. Save it. You can see we get a little message there, saved. And now we can see that this successfully executed this top workflow. But what actually happened? It took what I highlighted and it summarized it. It found key insights, notable quotes, and tags, if relevant, and popped it all into a Google Sheet. So first off, that's just cool to save and organize information from the browser, right? But second off, what comes next? See how here we have another workflow. And while the first workflow was triggered by a webhook that save it button in the browser triggered, this workflow is triggered every week. Right there, that shows you in the cron language when that's triggered. I could also just go days. Every 7 days, it's going to trigger. In fact, I'm going to change it to every 3 days. At midnight, it'll trigger. So what is going to be triggered? Well, it's going to read through everything that's been saved to that Google Sheets file. It's then going to use OpenAI's GPT 3.5 Turbo model to act as my personal knowledge curator, take what I saved this week, and make a whole rundown. Most important insights, the connections this content might have, recommendations for learning more, and then it's gonna email those to me. So let's see what happens if I trigger this right now. It's sent, and now let's open my inbox here. And boom, I got a new email. Weekly Digest, diving deep into skills and business. What's up, knowledge connoisseur? And it summarizes Everything that I've highlighted this week gives me any connections, all revolves around the central theme of AI skills and their practical application in business settings. Pretty neat, right? Recommendation on a deep dive. So this is a practical tool to summarize the content that I may not have time to consume. Finally, I can open up this chatbot, this bottom workflow. I'll open the chat and I'll say, what were the top 3 sources of my highlights this week? And I can chat with that little database, which once again is just a Google Sheet. It's not a fancier vector storage. It's nothing. And here we go in this little chat. There it all is. The value of teaching AI skills, the importance of AI critiquing code. And these were all just samples, of course. But this is what we are going to build in this video. It is going to be a thorough introduction to using n8n and automations and AI agents and the difference between them both. So even if you don't find this tool interesting, I recommend sticking through this because it's a good way to get to know n8n. Now, the first thing you're going to need obviously is an n8n setup, which hopefully you've created already. Then you're going to need to import that JSON file that there's a link down below. Once you've got that all in here, you're going to see how we have some warning signs, some exclamation marks. That means our credentials are not set. So you're going to need an OpenAI API key. Go to platform.openai.com and load as low as $5 into your dashboard. And I promise you, you won't even use hardly any of that. It's very affordable. You're also going to need a Google API key from the Google Cloud Console. I'll walk you through that in a little bit. And finally, you're going to need the knowledge-based spreadsheet template. Boom. This right here is the template for today's tutorial, which you can get in a link below. So the first thing I always do once I import a new n8n workflow from a template is to go through and solve all of these little red exclamation points, okay? Now I already mentioned this just means credentials are missing. It's pretty simple, but that's the first thing we want to do before we try to get everything working and tweak it to be how we want it. And believe me, sometimes this can be the most cumbersome part of setting up a new n8n workflow, especially if it's using services that we don't have credentials for yet. So that's what these red bits mean. But after your workflow runs, it might be red for a different reason. And that could be, for example, like right here, we have these JSON expressions, and this one's green and this one's gray. But if it's red, that means there's an error with it. And it means something in a previous node didn't work, or something in this node isn't working. But we'll come back to that. So I'm going to switch over to my other n8n instance where I already have all these credentials, and let's start looking at how to get these credentials set up. Hey, real quick guys, if you know that the future is about building your own tools and not renting them from others for a monthly subscription fee, then I want to invite you to a 7-day free trial of the AI Captain School. In the trial, you'll get access to the conversation-driven development course where you'll learn everything about how to get your computer working for vibe coding, how to prompt, and how to follow the 4-phase vibe coding approach to build and ship robust apps. You'll also get access to the n8n workflow repository where we have a whole bunch of workflows categorized by use case to optimize your systems. And if you're liking what you see after the trial, the Architectural Literacy Crash course will teach you everything that you missed in not going to coding school. It'll show you how to use the command line, how to read patterns in codes, how APIs work, and how to use Git so you can collaborate and experiment without fear. Not to mention, there are challenges for putting your learning to the test by building actual applications. Our goal in here is that you learn that become an AI captain and a sovereign builder. So if that sounds like the path you're on, I invite you to check it out, school.com/AI captain. Okay, now back to the video. So we're going to start with OpenAI. Now you see I'm cheating. I already have everything set up. This is my working version of the workflow. But I'm going to open this up and you're going to see I have 2 credentials here. You're probably not going to have any because we just started a new n8n instance. So we're going to click create new credential. Here, remember when we went to platform.openai.com and generated a new API key with this link here? Great. You're going to copy that API key and you're going to paste it here. Done. Now, base URL. If you're using OpenAI, you don't need to change that. It's fine. If, for example, you want to use Venice AI, which I recommend for certain purposes that I'm not going to get into now, but number one, it's like super private. So if you want to stay private, Venice AI is a great way to go. But here we got a different base URL. It's the same API specs as OpenAI. It just uses a different base URL. And plenty of services out there do this. But we're using OpenAI here, so I'm leaving that there. You paste your API key there, you press save. But wait, don't press save. Change the name. My OpenAI account, whatever you want to call it. You might want to use different keys for different purposes depending on your goals here. Okay? So you have different keys that do different things. You want to track the spending. Give it a different name. So you've got a new credential now. I've got OpenAI account. I've got Venice account. Guess what? When I click this edit button here, I can go back to that screen. You can see, look, I have the base URL is Venice, but in this one, the base URL is OpenAI. So it's very easy now to switch the provider I'm using just by changing the credential. Now that does not mean you can switch it to Anthropic, okay? Anthropic uses a different set of API specs. And if you want to use Anthropic, you can find the different tools over here, but that's for another video. We're sticking to OpenAI for this one. After that, I have GPT 3.5 Turbo selected. You can change the model if you want. I recommend messing around with using different models as you explore workflows in n8n. So you can see the first thing we want to do is go through all the nodes that have an error and make sure we solve it. So now let's run through the Google credentials. Now the cool part is here we can knock two birds out with one stone. So here we do need a Google Sheets account, and that is going to look different here in this open window here, like when you open the window here, than Gmail. Okay, that is going to look different, but this client ID is going to be the same. All we have to do is make sure Gmail and Google Sheets are both activated in the Google Cloud Console in order for us to be able to log in with this same client ID and secret for the OAuth sign-in. Okay, so next up, we have to go to console.cloud.google.com. You're going to need to make a project if you don't have one already. Then click the navigation menu and click APIs and Services. And here in Enabled APIs and Services, you're either going to have some of these services enabled or you're not. What we need enabled here is Google Sheets. So I'll type that in here for the API library. We click it. I've already got it installed, so that's good. And next I need Google Mail. Gmail API. I enable this. And now we can see, if I go back to the Enabled APIs and Services page, we have Gmail, we have Google Sheets, and I obviously have a lot more enabled here as well, but only a few are actually making requests. So this can be a little tricky, but in general, Google will walk you through it. You need to have credentials, and you need to have an OAuth consent screen. So in your credentials, you need to make a new OAuth 2.0 client, and then it's going to have you configure your consent screen. Then when you're there on this page, go through all these links. Branding, make sure you put your email, if you need a logo, your domain, okay? That is the first thing you got to do. You should not need to verify your app. In fact, you're not going to be able to unless you're an actual organization. Make sure you come to your audience and put it in production, and you're going to want to create a client. And in here, you're going to select web application. You're going to name it something like n8n, and then you're going to give it the authorized redirect URI that n8n gave you right here, OAuth redirect URL. So you copy that and you paste it in here. And just for good measure, put your domain in here as well, and then create the client. Then once you've got the client, you'll be able to see that you have a public ID and a secret. Okay? Copy both of those and then bring it here into the client ID and the secret. Paste that in there. And then I gotta click sign in with Google. And this window will pop up that we all know so well. Choose your email. You might have to go through this. It says it hasn't verified the app. That's okay. It's your app. Click advanced and continue to your domain and allow all these things that are necessary, which is basically send emails. And this is giving your own n8n instance permission. Remember. Okay, connection is successful. In order to set up your Google Sheets OAuth, it's the same OAuth that you're going to use for Gmail and everything else. So there we go. Our account is connected. Gmail account. We press save. That's done. And then once you have your Google Sheets account set up, you're going to need the Google Sheet ID. So hopefully by now you've made a copy of the knowledge base spreadsheet, and you copy the ID from the URL, which is going to be up here. I'll show you. Mine looks like this. You're going to take the middle of that, and that is your ID. So you copy that, go back to your workflow, and paste it into the spreadsheet. That's all you're going to need to do. We're going to walk through what all of these do in just a minute. Now we have another Google Sheets node, same thing. make sure the right credential is being connected with and the right spreadsheet ID. One more time with Google Sheets node. Boom, sheet ID is set. OpenAI, make sure the right credential is being connected with and there is a model set. Gmail, you're going to need to put in who you want to send your email to. You don't need to touch anything else here, but make sure you have your Gmail account OAuth set up. You can use the same one from earlier. It's the same client ID and the same client secret. And now finally, we see one last thing. I have an Anthropic chat model connected with here because I like to be annoying. If you'd rather just keep OpenAI here, you're going to create a new node. You're going to type in chat model and find OpenAI. Drag that here. Make sure the right credential is selected in the right model. And now, instead of having Anthropic chat selected, you can click the little trash can and drag the chat model to OpenAI instead. So now let's jump into how n8n workflows work. We have 3 workflows in this file. We have the content capture, we have the weekly summary, and then we have the chatbot. We'll go through them one by one. This very first node is always called a trigger. And you see how all the nodes are like rectangles or squares, unless it's the beginning. You have this more rounded one. Now, this is a webhook trigger, meaning whenever this webhook gets called with a post request, it is going to trigger this workflow at the top. Now, that webhook is triggered in here, this bookmark that we showed earlier. Now, if you scroll over to the left, you'll see the code to create this bookmarklet, which will trigger the webhook. When we open this up, we'll see that we can copy the JavaScript. Don't copy these tilde lines, okay? The tilde lines just mean it's code in Markdown formatting, so don't worry about that. But just get everything between JavaScript and the semicolon. And notice, you're going to need to change the webhook URL. So what are you going to do there? You're going to open up your webhook URL and you'll see 2 options, test and production. Okay? Copy the production URL. Normally, we would run through this with a test URL as we're building, but I already built all this and tested it out. So I'm going to paste my webhook URL there. I'm going to copy it all, and then I'm going to right click on my bookmarks, add page, and you're going to paste the JavaScript there. Crazy, right? I didn't know you could do this either before very recently. And give it a name. I call it save it. All right? Click save. Boom. Up here, you're going to see the save it. And I'm hoping this inspires you now. You know how everyone and their mother seems to be making browser extensions these days? Well, it comes from this idea. So now what is happening here in this JavaScript is it's going to get your current page URL right here, the URL, window location href. Then it's going to get the page title. Then it's going to get the content based on what you have highlighted. We're not doing any fancy web scraping. We're not looking at the CSS selectors. We're just copying shit. And then it's going to take that as soon as you click that button and it's going to send this through the workflow. So that's what this first trigger does, is it triggers that JavaScript. And what that does, see how it's using method post. It's making a post request. This requires a post request. And what's going to happen is it's going to take the data sent with that request, the body, the payload, if you will, and it's going to send it right here into Extract Insights with AI. So watch. I'm going to save. I'm going to make this active, and I'll go find something to highlight. I'll come back to this video I was at earlier, and I'll click save it. Saved. We get a confirmation. If you don't get this, it's probably not working. Now, if we go back to the workflow, we don't see anything happen here. We only see that happening in test mode. So I click from editor to executions tab. And now we can see we just ran it. Everything happened smoothly. And what's neat about the executions tab is you can click to see all the data that came in. So for example, here in the content capture webhook, here's everything it got. But the important part is this body. It got the link to the YouTube video, the title, and it didn't get the content actually. So this is what you got to be careful of. Sometimes the content may not show up right. Questions why this might not work? Well, because this is some JavaScript plugin. It's not actually on the page. This is called Aidify, and it summarizes YouTube videos for you because I don't have time to watch them. Can you tell I like things to help me consume content? So if right here I highlight and I click save it, let's see if that content shows up right. This all depends on how this is showing up in your browser and if our plugin can tell if it's highlighted or not. So now we have another execution here, and now let's check. We double click that first node, and now we can see that it got the highlight. So let's click this copy to editor button. And what it's going to do, it's going to take all this data that just ran through in this execution, and it's going to copy it to our editor. So in case we need to debug it, we can see. So the output of that first node, Content Capture Webhook, becomes the input for this Extract Insights with AI node. Okay, so the output of here becomes the input of here. The output of here will become the input of here, and the chain keeps going. So here we have all this good stuff, and here we have a prompt. Okay, so we already set up to OpenAI with the credentials, and this says your current task: analyze the provided content, extract the most important information, and create a structured summary that I can reference later. Content to analyze. Now, you see these green JSON expressions. That means that our prompt successfully called this data JSON body URL, JSON body URL, JSON body title. Look, I'll even delete this one. And watch this. We have 3 ways to see our input up here: schema, table, and JSON. JSON is just like the straight up JSON. If you ever need to copy something to show an AI, say, like, hey, what's going on with my workflow? You would probably want to use the JSON, but here in schema, look what we can do. We'll drag body content. We'll just drag it here. Boom. So we can see all the data that's being output by the node before it, and we just drag it here. And then the prompt continues: please provide a clear, concise title, a 2 to 3 sentence summary, 3 to 5 key insights or takeaways, any notable quotes, and then format your response like this. So it's formatting our response as a JSON, okay? Title, summary, key insights, notable quotes, tags, why it matters, date saved, and source URL. Title, summary, key insights, notable quotes, tags, why it matters, date saved, source URL. These all match exactly, and that's very important because what's going to happen here is in the next node, it's going to send all this stuff to our Google Sheet. Now, you can see that the role of this message is a user prompt. Like, hey, please do this for me, just like you're chatting with ChatGPT or Claude. I could add a message here and I could do a system prompt. Speak to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Act as my best friend from high school where we joke around together about my obsession with artificial intelligence. Right? Something like that. So that's not included in here, but I'm just showing you how you can have some fun with these prompts. You can also adjust the temperature if you want it to be a bit more random, a bit more risky, a bit more dangerous. And then from there, this will now be sent to a code node. Now, what a code node is literally code. And I can choose Python or JavaScript. And this JavaScript will then run the code based on all the data that came before it. So here in our input, you can see how we have our first node, which was the content capture, the bookmarklet button in our browser, right? The URL, the title, the content. And then we have what our AI did, which was create all this content, and it separated them into the same headings as our Google Sheets, right? So now what this code is doing is parsing through all of those headings: summary, title, key insights, notable quotes, blah, 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 blah. It's parsing through that, and then look what it's outputting. More organized JSON. So here it's just one JSON object. Here, the whole object has a bunch of different key pairs inside of it. Okay, we have all this more organized, cleaner data now. That's what the code node does. Next, we have a Google Sheets node. And what this does is connect to Google Sheets. It's choosing which we want to work with, a sheet or a spreadsheet. In this case, we want to work with a sheet, and we're going to append all of this data here to this spreadsheet ID, which we already pasted this in. This is the unique URL to this page, which we see here. And we have the sheet name is knowledge base, which is right here, knowledge base. And the range is columns A to H. A to H. So it knows these are our columns, and it also knows what our columns are called, and it also has this data that from the code node that's been inputted into it. The key row means the headings, which in our case is these. So it's going to skip that key row and not overwrite the headings. Use header names as JSON paths we want to keep enabled. And the value input mode just means everything we see in here is how it's going to go in to the Google Sheets file. You can see we have a list here, line breaks. If we didn't have that, if it just said user entered, then we would see the line breaks, the /n. So we want to keep that as raw. So that's what the Google Sheets node does. It adds all that in. And then this success response is a little bit more of just a formality. Generally, that's what you need in like a chat setup, which we don't even actually need anymore with the AI agent node. But success response is just saying, yes, it worked. In a lot of cases, that could be a Telegram message just saying, hey, we got this added to your knowledge base. Because really, when we clicked the bookmarks button, all that did was say like success, like the script worked. But ideally, you have something at the end that says, hey, everything worked. It's been added to your knowledge base. Bada bing, bada boom. So that is our first workflow. I can copy this from a Claude conversation, click save it, and boom, we can see the new execution happening in our n8n workflows. Succeeded. I go over to the knowledge base and boom, we have another thing added. Pretty fun. Now, what's going to happen next? Earlier, I showed you the weekly summary trigger. I changed this to every 3 days. This trigger is how you get started in a workflow. Now, I already recommended to you, get started with templates. If you want to build your own though, or even if you want to replace this, what are you going to do? Right click and go to add node, or click this plus button, or just click tab, and then write trigger. Okay, look at all these triggers we can play with. Oh, when someone fills out my type form, when someone fills out the chat, which we'll go over in a minute with the final workflow here. Cal.com, when someone signs up for a call. Calendly, someone signs up for a call. So there's a lot of triggers in here. When an MCP server is triggered, when a local file is changed, okay? The possibilities here are endless. When an RSS feed is updated, for example, if you want to transcribe podcasts, which is next on my list. So that's how we add a node. So we could do schedule trigger, and that's this same thing. Trigger it throughout every interval. And that's how you add a node. So say I want to add like a Telegram node as well. When I send a message saying, hey, send me my update, I can go over here, type in Telegram, choose Telegram, go down here to triggers, and I can say on message. So when this bot that we connect with gets a message, trigger this workflow. Now what's missing here? We need to attach this trigger to the rest of the workflow. So now this middle workflow here has two different triggers. Telegram and just every week. Okay. Now there's obviously going to be more involved with making this Telegram thing work. I'm going to remove it for now. So after the trigger happens, then we have the spreadsheet. Once again, we have everything plugged in here. It looks the same as earlier. Data start row is 1. That's because the key row is 0. The data starts all here because the first row is just the headers. Then what's going to happen is this node takes all the data, right? And then this node takes that data, plugs it in here, and then prompts ChatGPT to come up with the week's theme, the top most important insights, connections, action items, recommendations, a good quote. I've got a system prompt here to talk like a good high school friend. And then that's going to be output as Markdown, which is the default for LLMs. It's going to convert that to HTML. And then it's just going to tell Gmail to send all that in an email. And if I wanted, I could change this to a Mailgun instead. So I could connect with Mailgun and I could have this send for my business, for example. If I don't use Gmail, I can have it sent with Mailgun instead, or that could be another Telegram message. This is the end of the workflow here. Let's run through it. In order to trigger this one without waiting, all I have to do is click execute workflow. And we can see this run through. Now, if you do not want your workflow to be active and you just want to test things, you would click this execute workflow button. The orange means testing, okay? And if you were to do that with this first step, just know there's two different URLs and you would have to adjust your save it button accordingly. And to do that, it's simple enough. In most browsers, just right click your button and click edit. And then you can change all the JavaScript there in the URL. But right here, because our trigger is time-based, we can just click the orange button and it'll just trigger through because it doesn't need anything from us. It was going to do it anyway. It just wasn't time yet. So now if we go through each one, we can see everything that the Google Sheets node came up with, right? From every row, it'll match this completely. And then it sends it here, right here, key insights, notable quotes, summaries, and basically, this JSON expression is just putting all of this together into one string. So it's saying, hey, here's what I saved this week, showing all of this. Now create a weekly knowledge digest. Then the output of this AI node is all this good stuff. Formatted in Markdown. What's up, motherfucker? This week's theme is all about AI taking over the world. Just kidding, kinda. Haha. So there's that humor. Okay, talk like a good high school friend. Don't be afraid to make light insults. And say, what's up, motherfucker, instead of, hey, hope you're doing well. So then, next up, after that's generated, we have to convert it from Markdown to HTML. Because emails still use HTML or just plain text. They don't use Markdown. So, this is sent in Markdown. JSON message content. Remember, I could delete this, the previous node, JSON message content right there. And the destination key is data. So right here we see message content. That's how it comes out. And here we see JSON data. That is the key that came out from our last node. Okay, data. That is the email in HTML. Remember, right here, Markdown. It comes in as JSON message content. It leaves as JSON data, just data. There it is, data. And this is a JSON expression to split the subject line. Because see how in the beginning, we have subject line, weekly digest, AI insights galore. That's the subject line. So right here, this is basically just saying split the subject line and make that the subject line. Okay? And that's what it did. So if we open up my email, now I just realized we're using the wrong email there. So AIcaptains.ai. So I could either execute this whole thing again, or I can start it just from here by clicking this play button. Now we have a little error here. So I'm actually going to execute this step again. We don't need to do this again. It's already generated everything. It's got a good email, but we've got 2 yellow warnings here. So I can either click this play button here or open it and click execute step. Okay. That's the same thing. So I'll click play. And now this one's ready for us to finish it off. It's not going to keep going. Okay, it's just going to do one at a time. And this is very helpful for debugging and figuring out what's going on. Click play there. Now, we open up my email again. Yo, what's up, motherfucker? This week's theme is all about AI taking over the world. Just kidding, kinda. You've been diving deep into how businesses can thrive with AI and even how it's revolutionizing education. Let's break it down for you. So there we go. There are some basic insights. I obviously do not have super quality data here because I'm just trying to highlight random things to show you for this video. But now you can just see we get this email. And that's kind of cool to get that once a week. And this is just a very basic way of gathering content to send to this weekly summary chatbot dude. We can add in RSS feeds. We can add in YouTube transcripts. We can automate a lot of that as well as just the content capture webhook. But this is just a sample video to get the wheels turning. So now finally, last but not least, is our chatbot. Now remember, we already changed the model here. You can always just delete the connection and connect something else. But let's start at the beginning here, which is the trigger when chat message received. Now you can see here, you have a chat URL. This chat URL, chat webhook ID, it's going to give you one. That's how you're going to be able to trigger it. Now, you can embed this on a page if you want to make it public, if you want to offer something like this as a service, which is pretty cool. You might want to add authentication if you do that. But for now, all I'm doing is clicking open chat here, and we're just going to run it this way. My whole chat is just going to take place here, next to my logs and the node output. So now I just say, tell me the most insightful thing I highlighted this week. And now we can see it run up here. We can see the AI agent working. And I overheated. My camera overheated. So I'm gone. But here we can see the most insightful highlight from our recent saves. So there we go. It ran through it. It just chatted with me. And I can keep chatting with it. Pretty neat, right? So now I can chat with my notes. With the content I didn't read, I can chat with it and glean insights. So what happened here is it triggered the chat and then it read through the knowledge base and it output everything just like it did before in our other workflow up here. And now in here, we have a prompt. The user query came from the very first node, the chat input, and then the knowledge base came from the second node, which was all of that. And then please search through my saved content and provide a helpful answer based on what I've previously saved. And then it sends it back. And that's exactly what we got, formatted in Markdown. Now, to keep the conversation going, this would not be possible if it weren't for this memory connected to our AI agent. This simple memory allows us to have 5 previous messages as our context. And I could change that to 10. I could change that to 50. But the more you use, the more likely you're going to run into memory problems on your server or just other problems. So ideally, you're not going to have huge conversations with this. You want most of the work to be done inside the AI agents based on what you already know you're going to want it to do based on your own preferences and desires. So let's wrap up this beginner's introduction to n8n with adding a tool to this AI agent. So as though we've already kind of seen, you have a chat model, you can give it memory, but you can also give it a tool. So what do these tools look like? Well, you could call another n8n workflow, which could be super helpful if you have lots of different tools that you want to potentially trigger depending on a decision the AI agent makes. You could add a code tool. Say in here, hey, when you need to, you can run this code because it's a tool. You could also say, hey, trigger this. So we could even say like, trigger this webhook if in the chat I say to highlight some random text and add it to the Google knowledge base. Okay. You could add an MCP tool. So you want to say, hey, add this to Notion. So you would add a connection to your Notion MCP server. Now, what we're going to do is super simple. We're just going to add a calculator, okay? And what does that do? It just allows the AI agent to call the calculator to do some basic arithmetic, all right? And, you could add so many tools. We could add, we could add Supabase in here. We could say, we could connect to your Supabase account and you could talk with your database, right? It could use it as a tool. This Apify tool lets you automate web scraping. Okay, like there are some really cool tools and I'm just afraid I'll take this video beyond where it needs to be just for a beginner's thing, but let's leave the calculator in there. And then you want to add to its prompt here. You also have access to the calculator tool in case the client asks you to make calculations. Okay, basically want to let it know it has access to that. Okay. So we save that. Let's open the chat. What is the square root of 1028? We can see this is activating. Let's see, is it using the tool? Yes, it's using the tool. Use the tool twice. Boom. It's 32.06. Now, I didn't find any specific content in your knowledge base related to the square roots of this calculation. Yeah, so I mean, that's really the big part of this is you want your tools to be relevant to what you're doing. If we wanted to be more productive, we could add a Google Sheets tool, sheet within document, yes. And we would use get row. So we could say, all right, now you can find a certain row in Google Sheets instead of, because remember, we're just feeding it all of this data, right? We've got all this output here. And then we're just feeding it in as just one big string. So if we wanted to give it an actual tool, we could say, all right, choose this document, knowledge base, from the main sheet. Good. Let's not add a filter. Let's not do any of that. And let's just give it access to the sheet. And we'll change the prompt. You also have access to pull the unique rows of the knowledge base spreadsheet with the Google Sheets tool. So now let's open up the chat. Make sure we can see that over there. Which recent highlight of mine covered vibe coding? Check the tags column. And so let's see how this goes. So it knows it needs to check the Google Sheets tool. Boom. looking at the tags, I found that the Tao of Vibe Coding from August 6th specifically mentions vibe coding as its first task. And that is an article from my friend Nick Huno. Shout out to Nick. We've had some interesting points in there, so I highlighted it all. And so now we can see how in this execution, it used that Google Spreadsheet tool. So there you have it. There is a pretty basic but still powerful use of n8n. Whether you want to call this a workflow or an agent is up to you. It's a little bit of both, in my opinion. But whatever you want to call it, what you just built is a system that will get smarter daily in a way that will help you. It can work with any future AI model. Even if OpenAI goes out of business, you can switch it to Anthropic, you can switch it to Venice, whatever, and you own this completely. I mean, you have this. I'm running this on a server. I could be running it locally on my computer. You don't need to be paying for all these different services out there that claim to help you do this. You just need to learn how to use n8n. And sure, maybe one day you think, I'm not sure if n8n is really what I want to use long term because it doesn't scale, for example. People do think that. In which case, you switch to Python. But you don't need to pay $20 a month to, I don't even want to name the services because there's so many out there, but you don't need to pay for them because you can build these agents on your own with n8n. You could literally come up with any functionality, and there is a way to do it with n8n. Okay, so to finish this up, I promised you I'd let you know my secrets for how to generate new workflows, how to get started from scratch if you can't find a template. Ask Claude or ChatGPT. This is the big secret here. Figure out what you want, explain it in a prompt the best you can. This workflow we use today came from Claude. I said, hey, I'm working on a video. What would be a good workflow to teach people how to use n8n while still having it be a valuable workflow? And it created this whole workflow, and we flushed it out together, and it had a few errors. In the beginning, I tried to import it, and I got an error. Where is it? I got an error. This didn't work. So I copy and pasted the error, and then it fixed it. And then I said, hey, I don't know what's going on with the bookmarklet thing. How do we fix it? And it gave me some different options. And we ended up with this, which I actually think is really cool. So all you got to do is prompt it. Now, next level shit is going to be where you connect an n8n MCP server to your Claude desktop or to whatever you use. And you can literally say, build an n8n workflow that blank using the n8n MCP server. And it will just use the n8n MCP server. Now, guess what? I could also add a tool here, MCP, and we could say here, the endpoint is our n8n MCP server. And we could literally have this chatbot be able to create new n8n workflows based on what we're learning, for example. Say, hey, build a new workflow based on whatever the knowledge base I highlighted was. Maybe it was a bunch of ideas from fucking Greg Eisenberg. We throw that in there. And then in this chat, it uses the MCP client to create new n8n workflows for you because you're running n8n locally. Okay. So this is some crazy stuff. You can do so much, and it just opens up the door to everything. And it will keep you relevant no matter if you want to be an entrepreneur or just keep building your career. It will keep you in the game. Own your infrastructure. Stay sovereign over it. Learn how to do this stuff. It is so important. Don't fall for the hype about all these platforms that are coming out all the time. Okay? So thank you for watching. If this was valuable, smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think and what you'd like to learn next. The AI Captain School is slowly opening its doors. Maybe by the time you see this, the doors will already be open. But check the bootcamp first. The command line is so fundamental. You got to learn the fundamentals before you really try to get too deep into AI. And n8n is, I think, the next leg up from the fundamentals of the command line. Learning Git, for example, learning how to run your own node packages, all that. Learn n8n, learn the foundations, become an AI captain. I'll see you soon in a new video. Love you all. Bye.
In a world where builders depend on others' tools, paying endless subscription fees, trapped by no-code limitations, one explorer was about to discover true freedom. Through the digital frontier, he learned to harness the raw power of AI to serve his vision. No more begging developers, no more monthly fees or no-code app death spirals, just pure intention-driven development. But the gatekeepers fought back. You need our platforms, they cried. Stay dependent. Keep paying us. Yet he stood firm. He knew to command the future he must navigate with power. Thanks to the AI Captain's Academy, he learned vibe coding from the ground up. He became a vibe builder, mastering the technology itself, not just the tools. Now he stands free in the digital realm he created, his own empire. AI Captain's Academy. Build with AI, not limits.